Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our entitled people, where you know the deal. Some people really think it's all about them, and who cares about others? And in today's episode, we've got some of the worst, guys. We're talking nasty Karen friends, people treating others like ATMs, stealing from your besties. Entitlement is on another level. So sit back, relax, and as always, try not to shake your heads too hard. Also, this voice you're listening to should only be on the Dark Fluff YouTube channel, nowhere else. Let's dive in. To start, I had horrible friends. Many years ago, our quote friends ruined our wedding by deciding to wear their own clothing instead of what was chosen for the entire wedding party. That wasn't enough to cut them off though, but this is gonna be long. About 6 years ago, my daughter-in-law passed away due to an overdose. To say that her death rocked our family to its knees is an understatement. I still can't say her name out loud without choking back sobs, and there's some family members that can't even speak about her yet, which includes my son, her husband. She left behind a baby, my grandchild, that I've had the honor of helping raise since her passing. That said, 5 years ago, her mom wanted to have a celebration of life for her daughter, my daughter-in-law, at the 1-year anniversary of her passing. We put great effort into a celebration, not a mourning. At the end of it, I was emotionally drained. I maintained my happy face until I was home, where I needed time to decompress and be taken care of by my husband. A few hours after being home, with a few drinks in me, I cried myself to sleep. I slightly woke up when I heard my husband talking on the phone. I just heard him say, no, I don't think she's up to it. A few minutes later, he repeats that, along with the reminder of what day it was and where we had been that early afternoon. After getting off the phone, he checks on me. He asked if I was hungry yet, but to go back to sleep. Now, I don't know how long it was. I went to lay down in my bed instead of the couch. I was deep asleep when someone yanks the blanket off of me, scaring me awake, and told me to get my lazy butt out of bed. And I'm not gonna lie, I came up swinging. There stood my so-called best friend at the time. I of course asked her what the heck her problem was, and at that, she smirked and she said, "Get your ass in gear, we're going to the local bar to hear this band, no excuses." I just shake my head and I said, "I can't, I'm done for the day, I have no more in me today." I said to her, I've smiled and played nice all day, when in the back of my mind, all I could hear was an endless loop of the phone call telling me my daughter-in-law had passed. Hearing me say that, she says, "Oh my God, everyone wants to go, so move it." I respond, "No, really, I'm not up to being around more people. I can't take another crowd. My head hurts from the stress, and I'm not up to loud music and bar noise." She then says to me, "You're being so selfish. We all want to go and you're holding us up. I'm giving you 5 minutes, so get up and get dressed." I just say to her, "No, bye, the door's behind you." She then says to me, "You really need to get over it. She's dead, she's gone. You can't bring her back, so what's the point in sulking and crying about it? As your best friend, you need this. Come to the bar." I respond to that and say, "Don't you think I know that? But I've spent the last year being the rock for everyone. I'm taking tonight for me, and I'm gonna cry for everything she's gonna miss out on." She then says, "Oh, boo-hoo, a druggie died. You're all better off without her anyways." Now, hearing that come out of her mouth, I lost it. She then goes on and says, "I said it. I've always disliked addicts and you know it. Now quit pretending she was something she wasn't and get yourself together and forget about her. Let's go partying." That's when I say to her, "Get out of my house. Don't you ever call me, text me, come here ever again. You need to get out now before I put you out." Of course, she puts up a fight and she says, "You know I'm right. You can't handle it." I'm not proud of this next part, but when she didn't immediately move, I grabbed her and I physically shoved her every few feet with her stumbling and trying to still talk to me. We hit the front door and I shoved her out as hard as I could and she landed on her butt. Our husbands were standing outside. My husband grabbed me to restrain me and hers helped her up. I just looked at her husband and I told him, "Get her away from me, she's never to come back here again." They then get into their car with her screaming at me that I know she was right, and one day I'll look back and appreciate her for trying to be a good friend. Not only that, but she was calling the police to have me arrested for assault, and she was suing me for any medical treatment she might need for her injuries. And yes, she did call the police. They heard my side of how she came into my bedroom, yanked my blanket off after telling my husband that she just wanted to check on me, and if I was still asleep, she would leave me alone. Her husband apologized to my husband, and I've told my husband that they can still hang out, but I won't ever have anything to do with her again. The husbands still get together to fish, shoot pool, do guy things, but she's not involved, and I'm not either. However, she did try to make an appearance and pretended like nothing ever happened a year later. We were outside when she pulled up. She gets out of the car and she asked if I was over my hissy fit about the junkie yet. I just shook my head and told her to leave, and she starts screaming at me. I don't even have a clue what she said because I went inside, closed the front door, and called the police and asked for an officer to come remove her from my property. They did, and I haven't heard from her since. Guys, say it with me. Good frickin' riddance, right? Like, on one hand, I do understand what OP's friend was trying to do, to get OP out and get her mind off things. But on the other hand, totally wrong way of going about it. And her calling the cops on OP some friend, right? Like, there's no coming back from that. That said though, I do love that despite all that drama, the husbands are still practically besties. Oh boy, I had no idea that people could be this unaware. My spouse's childhood friend announced a year ago that he was coming to visit and intended to stay with us. We tentatively said okay. This is someone whom my spouse rarely sees, as the friend lives out of the country. Recently, we found out that my mother requires significant medical procedures and she'll be hospitalized for a few days to a week and recovering with us after, as it's easier for me to take care of her if she's at our home. More space, all that stuff. This procedure falls smack dab into the middle of my spouse's friend's trip. So I told my spouse to tell their friend about the circumstances, that this would severely impact any sightseeing plans we had, and I would be out for the duration of the trip between work and taking care of my mom. That said, my spouse's friend, despite driving for many years, did not want to drive while here, as car rentals are expensive. That of course meant that we were to drive this friend around. Now, I had hoped that like most normal people, the friend would pick up on the fact that this wasn't a good time to visit us and make alternate arrangements, such as drive their own car. But instead, they said, well, as long as I get to see X while I'm here, I'm fine. I should probably mention that my spouse is a very new driver. They just got their license a month ago and has little experience driving freeways. Said friend arrived on Monday, and since then, number 1, expected to be picked up from the airport, which is a 2-hour drive each way. Number 2, didn't offer gas money, nor is willing to give gas money to my spouse for driving all that way. Number 3, expects to be driven to sightsee each day, and again, won't offer gas money or pay for anything. Number 4, when in our house, this person has the TV up loud in the one room I enjoy hanging out in. Number 5, this person doesn't pick up after themselves. Number 6, this person has not offered to pay for a single meal. Number 7, they don't even pay for their own meals and drinks. They think they have free reign of our pantry, so now we're paying to feed another adult. I should also mention that this friend has money, so it's not even a case of not having money. Number 8. When taken to sightsee, this friend never says thank you and even complained about the one place my spouse took them to. Number 9. This person takes long showers, up to 45 minutes, without even asking if we need the bathroom before. Number 10. They don't offer to help with anything in the house. Number 11. This friend is a total social drain to be around and only wants to talk about themselves and their thoughts and complaints. Number 12. This friend has not once said thank you to us for hosting or driving or paying for their meals. And lastly, this friend is staying for 13 days total, all with us, all with the expectation of us driving them and accommodating them this whole time. I have social anxiety, and my spouse knows this, and I've had to give up my 2 favorite spaces in the whole house so this friend has a place to sleep and a place to hang out when they're not in the bedroom. I also work from home, and I had to relocate my work setup to another part of the house, which was and is a major inconvenience as work is crazy right now, and I'm having to balance taking care of my mom with that. The last 6 days have been hell, and I feel like I have no peace in my own home, especially after a long day of having to be social while working and then having to continue that because of this house guest. The next 6 days will also be hell as this friend simply won't take the hint. And I've got the stress of dealing with my parent who's having a procedure that has a 10% fatality rate, and given her health conditions, complications could happen. Of course, knowing this friend, they still don't get the hint and still expects my spouse to drive them places. I have talked to my spouse and they have agreed that this friend is a drain. And they're not happy about it either, but they are trying to stick it out until the friend leaves. And they've already said the friend will not be allowed to stay here again. It's clear to me that this friend is massively taking advantage of my spouse, and I hate to see it. I'm just flabbergasted that people like this even exist, as every other house guest we've ever had has been considerate, they occupy themselves, they arranged for their own transportation, and genuinely, they seem to care about our lives as we care about theirs. This one friend is the most entitled person I've ever had the displeasure of meeting. Yeah, that was the first part of this post, guys, and I would agree that OP's spouse's friend is super duper entitled. And it does suck that OP's spouse is being dragged around like this and isn't standing up for themselves or saying a darn thing about it. And this person comments, I am flabbergasted that you would let this happen in the first place. Like, why wouldn't you cancel the trip when your mom got sick? At the very least, you need to confront them about sponging off of you and telling them that they need to kick up some money for the second week of their stay. Print out some self-guided walking tours of your city and point this person to the nearest bus/tram stop. Remember, people, no one can take advantage of you unless you let them. And OP does come back to update, and they say, so after the original post and seeing the comments, I got even more angry at the situation. I felt very hurt and disappointed by my spouse's inability to put the needs of his spouse above a friend whom he rarely sees in person. I felt I wasn't the priority, and neither was my mom in a very vulnerable time. I simply couldn't tolerate the situation anymore. Everyone's responses shook some sense into me and made me determined to not be a doormat any longer. Because I was exhausted and already told my spouse of my feelings, I essentially gave my spouse the cold shoulder. I avoided interacting with them and the friend. I refused to buy any food, even for my spouse. I looked after my mom, spent lots of time with her, and made plans. When we finally talked later that day, I told my spouse that I was getting a hotel room 5 minutes from the hospital, and I would be staying there until I felt comfortable in my own home. And if that was several days, so be it. My spouse did ask if I was doing it to avoid them. I said no, I was simply done with the stress of the situation, and I didn't care to be around this so-called friend. By the next morning, I think my spouse finally realized the gravity of the situation and just how upset I was. They offered to help the friend fly home sooner. I said, why is that the only option? You driving them everywhere or helping them fly home? Like, is this person that incapable that they can't get a hotel and their own transportation? My spouse mentioned the cost of a hotel, to which I said, I know this friend has money. They can afford it, and why travel to another country if they had no money to pay for accommodations? I told my spouse that until that friend is gone, I'm staying at the hotel down the road from the hospital. I told my spouse that I felt incredibly hurt and angry that I wasn't the priority in an extremely stressful time in my life, that my spouse did not listen when I told them to tell the friend to make other plans than stay with us. I also said that in trying to keep us both happy, they ended up hurting me. My spouse then revealed that they felt backed into a corner with the friend. They also revealed that the friend is known for sometimes having tantrums if they don't get their way. Surprise, surprise. My spouse also said that they would talk to the friend about leaving, but still proceeded to drive them all day yesterday out of obligation. My mom's surgery was successful, but it was stressful and ran longer than planned. And yes, I spent the night in a hotel as promised, as I was drained after the long day. My spouse talked to their friend today and broke the news that they couldn't continue to drive the friend, and they needed to either fly back sooner or get accommodations elsewhere. My spouse is currently driving this entitled friend to their hotel in another city, and is helping them get adjusted by essentially hand-holding them on transportation options. My spouse is still far too kind for their own good. That friend has yet to say thanks or contribute anything financially for all the things my spouse has done. So yeah, that's the update. This whole experience has taught me to stick up for myself and not allow others to walk all over me. Yeah, the things that some people will do for their childhood friends, hey? Like, it's absolutely wild that Opie's husband bent over backwards for this friend. And I do get it, guys. Some people's friends are like family, but you gotta know when to draw that line and not let them walk all over you like that. And one of the top comments on this post says, I'm wondering why everyone keeps calling your husband's freeloading piece of crap a friend. This is no real friend. This is a user who doesn't care about anything other than themselves. He is no friend. If this piece of crap ever calls to come and stay again, let your husband know that the answer is heck no and tell him to F off. Again, he's not a friend and your husband's an idiot if he thinks this guy's a friend. You need to get him to understand that if all of his friends are like this fool, then he has no real friends. He's just being used as a fool. You need to be pissed and make sure this never ever happens again. So last week, I kicked what I thought was a good friend out of my house because I can no longer handle her antics. My friend Kendall and I met in university in 2016. We studied different majors, but we were from the same department, so we share many classes together, and we bonded over our passion for gaming. Upon graduation, Kendall moved back to her hometown and she found a job there. We kept in touch online through Instagram. About 3 years later, Kendall told me that she found a better paying job in the city, so she's planning to move out here from her parents' place. When I asked her about her plans on accommodations, she replied with, "That's the thing. Since you have an extra bedroom, I thought I could just move into that." And for context, I inherited an apartment from my late grandfather, which is a nice 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom near the city center last year. And I currently live alone there since it's closer to my workplace and has all the convenience of public transport. So after some thinking, I thought there was no harm in living with Kendall, since I considered us close friends. We discussed the terms and of course the rent. A week later, Kendall moves into my apartment, and things were great at first. My home felt more lively than usual, and the thought of going home to a close friend warmed my heart, and it gave me a sense of security. Things were okay for a while, and then crap goes downhill super quick. After a few weeks, Kendall starts complaining about many things at home. About her work, her savings, how she feels homesick. At first, I was very accommodating, thinking maybe she needs time to get used to the city life. so I offered as much help as I can, even to the point of if she's low on money, I don't mind voiding a month's rent if it meant I could help her financially. I taught her how I save money, how I live off of my low salary with several commitments like my car, my dog, and a student loan. I grew up where my parents expected me to be independent, so I told her things I would do when I'm low on cash. How to get freelance jobs, how to do this, how to do that. But she always seemed to have excuses for every suggestion I have. She would say stuff like finding a freelance job is too hard, and how she couldn't let go of her premium junk food and she's not willing to cook or meal prep. Eventually, I decided to leave it as is. After 2 months of living together, I realized that Kendall started treating me like some kind of competition. She would constantly ask me things like how much money I make a month, how many job hoppings did that take, anything she thinks she's better than me at, she definitely pops that question. She also boasts how she's loyal to her crappy paying company and how I would never move up the corporate ladder, as she called me an industry frog. She once snooped my savings balance and she asked how the heck did I have so much saved up, and maybe I should stop collecting rent from her. I just got mad and I told her if she's not happy living with me, maybe she should move out. Cue the crocodile tears, as she said it was a joke, I didn't have to take her seriously. She begged for forgiveness and she promised to never snoop my personal items and details again. I let it go once, but she kept bringing up things like, well, you have the cash and a credit card. You need to pay for this and that. And she said that every time we went out. Comments like these became more frequent when I got a new job 6 months ago. On top of that, she doesn't clean up after herself. She steals my clothes, my change that's left out, she tries to flirt with my boyfriend, and at times, she's parked in my parking space when our initial agreement is that she has to find her own parking space if she's moving in, because my apartment only has one parking spot per unit. The straw that broke the camel's back was when I caught her kicking my dog when I got home from work. I yelled at her and I rushed to check my dog. Luckily he was fine, but I still rushed him to the vet for safety measures. I got home and she sneered and said it was just a dog, and as a friend I shouldn't treat her like that. I just asked her why she kicked my dog and she didn't answer me. She just shrugged and tried to escape into her room. At this point, it was already about a year since Kendall moved in with me. I just lost my cool and I told her off, bringing up her problems and how I tried to be nice and accommodating. I then told her I'm giving her a week to move out, and that from now on, I'd rather we keep our relationship casual, or we don't ever talk at all. Kendall just cried and she begged me not to kick her out, but it soon turned into her screaming at me, calling me a bad friend because apparently, in her words, I didn't talk to her about how badly she was behaving. There was a lot of back and forth, which I don't remember what I said, but I remember eventually calling her an entitled brat. She just cried again, saying it was uncalled for and stormed off to her room. The next day, I was bombarded with texts from other university friends, calling me selfish and others trying to sympathize with me. Apparently, Kendall posted the whole argument on Facebook and Instagram, painting me to be the bad guy. I was upset at first, but I decided that after Kendall moved out, we would no longer be friends. Last week, she finally left. I changed the locks on my apartment and I curled up in bed and cried myself out. Probably from the sadness of losing a friend, or maybe I'm finally letting out all the frustrations. You know what, I'm honestly surprised OP lasted a whole year living with her, and that Kendall kicking OP's dog was the straw that finally broke the camel's back. Not Kendall stealing from her, snooping through her finances, playing victim, the list probably goes on and on. And if you thought Kendall was over the top, listen to this next post. So this one went from 0 to 100 pretty quickly. Firstly, some backstory. I own a small business and our team are absolute rock stars. These are good people who could walk away at any time and land another job in minutes. We survived the pandemic that must not be named, with no layoffs, no reduction in pay, and we transitioned to 100% work at home, which remains in place. We've worked together for a long time, with the least senior person being with us for 7 years. That said, my wife's friend, who I'll call Stacy, is a complainer. She's one of those people who aren't happy unless they're not happy. My ever-patient wife does her best to cheer her up. Last December, Stacy puts in a vacation request for the week of Christmas, a week before Christmas, when everyone else had put their request in and was approved. Her request was denied, and she thought she would leverage the situation by quitting, only to discover that they processed her voluntary termination after she went home. It's now coming up mid-year and she's been out of work. She and the other friends were visiting last Sunday for one of my wife's wine and crafts night among her friends. Making small talk in the kitchen, I asked her how her job search was going, and she said it was going poorly, and then she asked me for a job. And the thing is, I didn't mind the ask. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. However, we're not hiring right now, and I told her as much. She then said, "You know I'm a hard worker, why not fire someone and hire me?" It did take me a second to process this before I explained that our staff's been together for almost a decade and I can't do that. To which she replied, "You're the owner, you can do anything you want, just fire someone so I can have a job." And I just thought to myself, no, because a BS move like that would destroy the trust of the team. I just apologized and I make a quick exit before the conversation could continue. On Monday, I happened to be on the phone with another small business owner in town, who I'll call Bob, who said he was down a couple of people. And that's when I remembered Stacy's request. So I told Bob what little I know about her work life, and he said to have her call. I told my wife, who passed it along to Stacy. Fast forward to today, and Bob calls me. He leads with, "How well do you know Stacy?" And I'll admit, I was a little nervous. I'm not looking to vouch for her, but I'm also not wanting to torpedo her opportunity. So I gave the best non-answer answer I could come up with. Bob then burst into laughter, explaining his interview with Stacy. It lasted less than 45 minutes because she kept trying to interview for the job that he didn't have available. She literally wanted him to get rid of one of his best staff members who's been with the company for 23 years so she could take that position. I just apologized and things are okay with Bob and I, but holy crap, did this go south quickly. The entitlement of some people knows no bounds, hey? I want that job, so fire that person so I can take their position. And guys, if I were in OP's shoes, I would be very curious as to how Stacy thought that interview went. Like, I would love to hear her side of her BS. And with that brings us to another end of our slash entitled people, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, it's an r/petty revenge episode where people are getting back at Karens, and oh my goodness, the stories are so satisfying. So go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.